For months, I thought my HOA fees were just part of home ownership, until I noticed the numbers didn't add up. Late-night lights in the HOA office, missing invoices, and a president who smiled too easily. Something was off. So I started digging, and what I found beneath those files wasn't just corruption. It was a cover-up big enough to ruin lives. The neighborhood looked like something out of a catalog. Tree-lined streets, matching mailboxes, trimmed lawns, and families who waved politely but never stayed to talk. It was the kind of place real estate agents called maintenance-free living. That phrase had always sounded comforting, until the day it stopped being true. When I bought my house 3 years ago, the HOA fee was reasonable. $270 a month covered snow removal, landscaping, and the community pool. Everyone paid it automatically. No one questioned it. That's how control works. Slow, quiet, polite. But this winter, an email appeared. Due to rising maintenance costs, HOA fees will increase to $390 effective next month. No explanation. No breakdown. Just pay more. Most neighbors shrugged. Some even defended it. Inflation, they said. Everything's more expensive now. But I had worked in accounting for 10 years, and something about the language in that email felt off. The first clue, it started small. A snowstorm hit in January, and for 2 weeks no one cleared the sidewalks. Yet the invoice sent by ClearPath Snow Services said they'd plowed 6 times. 6 times. I called the number on the invoice. Disconnected. Then I checked the company online. Nothing. No website. No business registration in the state. That was my first real chill, and it wasn't from the snow. The HOA meeting, the next community meeting was packed. Folding chairs filled the clubhouse hall. Brenda Marsh, the HOA president, stood at the front in her beige suit, smiling like a teacher in front of obedient students. She spoke about budget adjustments and upcoming improvements, but when someone asked where the new funds were going, she dodged the question. When it was my turn, I raised my hand. "Can we see last year's expense report?" Brenda blinked. Her smile didn't fade, but her voice tightened. "Those records are for board members only." A quiet murmur spread through the room. A few people looked at me, then quickly looked away. That's when I realized the silence of the neighbors wasn't ignorance. It was fear, digging deeper. That night I went home, poured coffee, and opened my laptop. If ClearPath Snow Services didn't exist, where did the money go? I pulled every HOA statement from the past year and cross-checked the vendor names with the State Business Registry. Out of 22 service providers, 6 were unregistered. 3 had identical mailing addresses, a P.O. box in the next town. I drove there the next morning. It wasn't an office. It was a UPS store. Every company Brenda hired was a ghost. The missing treasurer. The HOA's official treasurer, Michael Grant, hadn't attended the last 3 meetings. People said he'd moved out suddenly. His house was still for sale, blinds drawn. I left a note in his mailbox. "Michael, it's about the HOA accounts. Please call me." No response. A week later, his house listing disappeared. Sold. But the new owners hadn't moved in yet. That night, I saw a moving truck parked outside at midnight. 2 men carried out file boxes instead of furniture. When I stepped closer, one of them looked up. He wasn't a mover. He was one of Brenda's board members. The threat, the next morning I found a note taped to my door. "Stop asking questions. Focus on your own property." No signature. For the first time, I felt genuine fear. But fear is a strange thing. It doesn't always stop you. Sometimes it clarifies everything. I decided to act like I'd dropped it and dig deeper behind the scenes. The accountants Tricky called the HOA's bank pretending to verify a transfer. They confirmed deposits were going to a secondary account under the HOA's name, one that wasn't mentioned in any report. That account had been created 2 years ago. The listed signatories? Brenda Marsh and Michael Grant. Half the neighborhood's fees had been funneled there. And then something, even more disturbing, transfers to an LLC called Marsh Property Solutions, Brenda's personal company. The confrontation set up I printed every document. Every bank confirmation, every invoice. Then I waited. The next HOA meeting was on a Thursday night. I knew Brenda would be there, smiling, confident, untouchable. But I also knew something she didn't. I'd recorded every phone call, every confirmation, and had screenshots of every transaction. As I packed the papers into a folder, I looked out the window. Brenda's car was parked across the street. Lights off. Engine running, she was watching my house. The breaking point that night, my Wi-Fi went down. My security cameras stopped working. When I stepped outside, I noticed muddy footprints near my garage door, fresh in the snow. Someone had been there, but I wasn't backing down. I made 3 copies of all the evidence, one for me, one for a lawyer, and one hidden in the post office locker. If anything happened, people would know. The next morning, I sent a single email to the HOA board. At tonight's meeting, I'll be presenting evidence of financial misconduct. Please ensure the session is recorded for transparency. No reply. The calm before the storm. By 7 p.m., the clubhouse lights were on. Half the neighborhood showed up, curious, whispering, nervous. Brenda stood by the projector, pretending not to see me walk in. She started her usual speech. Thank you all for coming. Transparency is our priority. I cut her off. Then you won't mind if I share something with everyone. I walked to the front, plugged in my USB, and projected the bank records. Lines of numbers filled the screen. And in those numbers, the truth was glowing like fire. Every dollar, every transfer, every fake company. The room went silent. Brenda's smile finally vanished. The morning after the board meeting felt heavier than usual. The crisp suburban air that once carried the sound of sprinklers and distant laughter now felt suffocating, as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath. Daniel woke up before sunrise, his mind replaying the HOA president's smirk from last night like a bad dream. He walked outside, coffee in hand, and noticed something strange. The community notice board was completely empty. Usually it displayed meeting notes, maintenance updates, or upcoming events. But now, just a clean white board, wiped spotless, almost too spotless. It confirmed what he already knew. They were hiding something. The silence after the storm by noon. Whispers had already spread across Maple Ridge Estates. Did you see the board? Everything's gone. Maybe they're updating it? No. Daniel asked questions last night. They're covering tracks. He could feel the shift in the air. Neighbors who used to wave now glanced away. The friendly smiles turned into cautious stares. The HOA had quietly done something worse than threaten. They'd started manipulating people. Daniel decided he wasn't going to wait for answers. He'd find them himself. The paper trail late that afternoon, he parked outside the HOA office, a small tan brick building tucked behind the clubhouse. He waited until most of the staff left, then walked in just before closing. The clerk behind the counter looked startled. Sir, we're closing. I just need to pick up the public maintenance reports. The law says they're open for residents to review. She hesitated. You'll have to request that in writing. I already did, Daniel lied, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. I have the acknowledgement right here. She didn't know whether to argue or comply. Eventually, she disappeared into the back room. When she returned, she handed him a thin stack of files. Is that everything? He asked. Everything you need, she replied coldly. That tone confirmed it. Something was off. The hidden transaction. Back home, Daniel laid the papers across his dining table. He expected expenses, landscaping, utilities, maybe repairs, but one transaction stood out. Consultation fee, $4,500. Vendor, Greenvale Advisory. He frowned. He'd never heard of Greenvale Advisory. Curious, he searched online. Nothing, no website, no address. Just a P.O. box in another state. He double-checked the signatures. It was signed by Laura Benson, the HOA president. His pulse quickened. $4,500 wasn't a small consultation. That was the resident's money. His money. He opened his phone, snapping photos of every suspicious page. The first threat. The next morning, His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking where you shouldn't. HOA funds are none of your concern." Daniel froze. He stepped outside and scanned the street. Nothing seemed unusual, except for the black SUV parked across the cul-de-sac. Its tinted windows faced directly toward his house. That was the first time he realized. This wasn't just about missing money. Someone was watching him. Neighbors began to vanish. Over the next few days, Daniel tried to warn others. He spoke to Sarah from across the street, one of the few who'd always supported him. "I think they're using fake companies to drain our fees," he whispered. She looked nervous. "Daniel, stop!" "They already questioned me after the meeting. I can't get involved." The next morning, her house was dark. Curtains drawn. Cars gone. A note taped to her mailbox read, "Property under review by HOA compliance." Daniel's stomach dropped. It was happening again, the same way they'd silenced him after the first meeting. The recording. That night, Daniel set up a small camera behind the curtain facing the HOA office. He had a feeling they'd make a move soon, and they did. At 11:42 p.m., a white truck pulled up. Two men stepped out, one in a reflective vest, the other with a flashlight. They unlocked the HOA door with... The next few days felt like a movie caught between two realities. One where life in Maple Ridge Estates continued like nothing happened, and another where people whispered Daniel's name like he was a ghost story. Some neighbors secretly thanked him for exposing the truth. Others crossed the street to avoid him, and then there were those who simply disappeared. Homes suddenly listed for sale, blinds drawn, lawns overgrown. Daniel had torn the mask off the HOA, but now he had to face whatever hid beneath it. The unexpected ally was a gray, windy evening when his doorbell rang. Daniel opened it to find a woman standing there, mid-30s, confident, eyes sharp. "Are you Daniel?" "Yes." "Who are you?" "I'm Claire. I used to work for Greenvale Advisory." Daniel froze. The name hit like a thunderclap. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "You have no idea how deep this goes," she said, lowering her voice. "They're not just an HOA. They're part of a chain. Dozens of neighborhoods, all under shell companies. Money moves from resident fees to fake consulting firms and then offshore." Daniel's pulse raced. "Who runs it?" She hesitated. "The same people who own your development company. This was never about maintaining the community. It's about controlling it." The hidden network Claire pulled out a flash drive from her coat. "This has everything. Emails, invoices, bank records. But if you open it on your home network, they'll know immediately." "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "Because I tried to blow the whistle once," she said bitterly. "They destroyed my life. But now that you've already gone public, maybe it's time someone finished what I started." She left before Daniel could respond. He stared at the small flash drive on his table, tiny but powerful enough to burn the entire HOA structure down. The setup Daniel drove to the city library that night. It was nearly empty, just the faint hum of computers and fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He plugged in the flash drive. Files flooded the screen. Spreadsheets, PDFs, email threads between board members and executives. At the top, subject, Greenvale Asset Reallocation Strategy. He opened it. Phase 3, complete ownership transfer of properties with delinquent members. Initiate compliance notices for targeted residents. Use HOA violation code 14B for justification. Daniel's jaw tightened. This wasn't mismanagement, it was planned theft. They'd been using fake violations to seize properties, then selling them quietly through their partner companies. Every time someone missed a small payment, their home became part of the plan. The trap closes just as Daniel finished downloading the files. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Walk away, Daniel. You've done enough." He looked up. Through the library window, he could see two men standing beside a black SUV watching him. His stomach dropped. He ejected the flash drive, shoved it into his pocket, and slipped out through the side exit. The night air was cold and sharp as he sprinted across the parking lot, weaving between cars until he reached his truck. The SUV engine roared to life. Headlights flashed behind him. He started the truck and sped off. The broadcast by dawn, Daniel had driven to a friend's small news studio in the next town, one that had already been covering local HOA scandals. He handed the flash drive to the anchor, a woman named Riley who'd seen this kind of corruption before. "If what's on this is real," she said, "it'll make headlines statewide." "It's real," Daniel replied. "Just promise me one thing. If anything happens to me, don't stop." She nodded. "We won't." That afternoon, the story went live. Breaking news. Exclusive. Homeowner exposes massive HOA fraud network. Millions missing. The broadcast spread like wildfire. Within hours, the video hit every social platform. Comments flooded in. People from other neighborhoods started sharing their own HOA horror stories. It wasn't just Maple Ridge anymore. It was everywhere. The retaliation. That night, Daniel's home security camera pinged. Motion detected. He opened the feed. A shadowy figure was standing at his front gate, holding an envelope. The figure looked directly into the camera, then dropped the envelope and walked away. Inside, Daniel found a single sheet of paper. "You think you've won, but the board never ends." No signature, just the HOA logo stamped faintly at the bottom. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. They were still watching. The aftermath days turned into weeks. Investigations began. Local police raided the HOA office. Files were seized. Bank accounts frozen. Laura Benson, the president, resigned for health reasons. Several board members vanished overnight. But Daniel didn't celebrate. He knew this was only the beginning. One evening, as he walked through the quiet neighborhood, he noticed a few residents gathered near the old notice board, the one that had once been wiped clean. This time, it had a new message pinned to it. "Emergency HOA election. All residents welcome." People turned to Daniel and nodded. For the first time in months, there was a spark of trust again. The final revelation. Later that night, Daniel sat on his porch, watching the streetlights flicker. His phone buzzed, an email from an unknown sender. Subject line, Phase 4, National Expansion. He opened it. It was a memo about a new housing development, in another state, already registered under the same fake companies. Daniel exhaled slowly. The fight wasn't over. He picked up his camera and hit record. "They thought they could silence me, but now the world knows. This isn't just about one neighborhood. It's about every community they control, and I'm not done exposing them." He uploaded the video. Within an hour, it went viral again. The comments poured in, support, anger, hope. And as the sun rose over Maple Ridge, Daniel realized something powerful. He didn't just expose a scam. He woke up a nation.ending line for narration, voiceover. They built an empire on silence, but all it took was one voice to tear it down.